So we're back with what happens after the Konosuba anime. Last time we talked about Volume 12, which followed Darkness and her little cousins and a little other shenanigans they all got into with the rest of the group. But this time we're going to talk about Volume 13, which is this volume right here, which follows Wiz. And I mean, it's kind of a Wiz-focused type of volume, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff with, of course, the rest of the squad. Because, Cosmo, Aqua, and all of them, they're still going to do their things. But we're going to get like 2 chapters towards the end that's mainly going to focus on her. And that's going to wrap around her maybe having a stalker. And also, I will say this. There are some funny moments, and we'll say that Aqua might go out and have a night with a man. We'll say that she might go to a bar, and then she doesn't come back home until the next day. So there's some stuff that happens in this volume. This volume is not that bad. It does have some funny key moments that are kind of hilarious. But without the way, let's get into Volume 13. Just know this is kind of coming later in the month than I would have liked, but at the same time, we about to get into it, though. So Chapter 1 opens up with a party at the guild, mainly because it's being held for Selfina since she got better. So all the adventurers there are just like, yo, we gotta throw a party for her. And when we get in there, everybody's calling basically Darkness mommy and mama and all these other type of things, and they're talking about they need milk from her because they're all just referring to Selfina because Selfina was calling her mommy and all that. And everybody's just talking about, oh, we need milk from mommies, you know what. And then Darkness, of course, goes and hits everybody. And that's when Aqua says, hey, you need to read the room and see that everybody's having a good time. And Darkness says, I know you ain't the one that's talking. So while that's happening, Selfina's like giving her thanks to everybody and all the adventurers. And then Cosmo goes to help Darkness since everybody's teasing her. But guess what this man says? This man says, bro, he's like, yo, Darkness's boobs belong to me, and everybody's just rolling because, Cosmo, he always got to be, the center of attention, so that's why that shit was hilarious. And then the next day, Cosmo goes to a merchant, and, like, he's going there to buy, like, some fine meat because he's thinking, like, yo, I want to retire, and I want to eat rail. I got all this money now. I don't need to be an adventurer. So he buys dragon meat. And as he's with Darkness, Darkness like, oh, you're buying dragon meat? Really? And Cosmo's like, yeah, because I heard it's supposed to be, like, rich and it's supposed to, like, help you level up. And she's like, yeah, I wouldn't buy dragon meat because dragon meat tastes horrible because, one, it's a carnivore and it's full of muscles. That's all it's meat. And so, like, Cosmo's having regrets about buying this, even though dragon meat does, like, level you up really high. So eventually when he goes home, he tries to sucker it off to Aqua and Magma, and they're like, nah, we don't want this shit at all. And then we learned that what Aqua's been doing is she's been making figures. And the first figure she made was one of Darkness. And there's a lot of interesting things that goes along with that. But the one she was working on that we see is she's made one of Magnamine. And, like, it's super detailed. And she made out of clay. And it's so detailed that you can remove clothes and all these other things. And Cosmo's like, hey, let me buy one of those later. And then we also find out that she sold all her Darkness models, the Wiz's shop, to Vanir. And, like, she made a lot of money because, Aqua's always needing money because she's always broke. And that's when Darkness goes to attack Aqua because of the figure that's being sold there. But then they get a knock at the door, and they get it from Yu. Yu's at the door, and we find out she has a letter from the Crimson Magic Village. It's basically a trial about who's going to be the next chief. Madam tuning her own horn, like, is talking to Yu, like, oh, she's like, oh, I guess I'm gonna be the village chief. That's why you came to give me this message. And she's looking like, and Yu laughs and is like, no, of course not you. I said, you would be useless. I said, you're hit one blast and you would be useless. She's like, this was for me. So, like, of course, Magnamine's all mad and she goes to attack Yu and all that because of that. And then, like, they come up with a plan to basically feed her the dragon meat, and they tell her she can basically stay over for dinner. And she's like, oh, really? Because, Yu being Yu, she's always just, always asking questions because, she always has that, one type of attitude that she doesn't have friends. So she's asking all these questions, and just know that eventually they're going to feed her the dragon milk, and the dragon meat, I should say, and it's kind of funny. So the next day, they all go to Wiz's shop, and when they open the door, they basically see that Vanir is giving Wiz a scroll, mainly because, Wiz is always buying these stupid things that they don't need. And as they're there, she's going to, like, attend to Aqua and all that. And that's when somebody opens the door, and it happens to be the Penguin Count. And when he opens that door, just know Aqua's going to blast him with the exorcism, like, attack, a spell that she has, and basically kill him. And that's when Vanir has to raise him back to life. And we learned basically that Eris has been coming down every night, like, attacking him. And that's why his lives have been, like, whittled down. But yeah, he's basically here now. And one of the things that's going to happen in here is we have Vanir still yelling at Wiz about all this stuff. But as that's happening, we get a call from the guild. And the guild is saying, yo, we need all the adventurers to hurry up and show up. And then that's when Cosmo and all them are looking at Darkness like, is there anything fishy that happened? Like, why are they calling us? But then we get this last call and they say a treasure island has showed up. And since a treasure island has showed up, everybody in the shop, they rush to go out, especially like Wiz, Vanir, and Aqua. They rush to go out, and Cosmo's just thinking like, what is a treasure island? And like as Cosmo's running to the guild to get to the treasure island, they explain to him that it's a giant turtle that eats eats gems and it lives underground, and like on its back it basically accumulates a whole bunch of rare gems and all that. So people go up there and they basically take all them gems off, because treasure islands, they always appear right next to towns, and towns, they just use that to get the stuff. So they go there. As they finally get up there, they're getting some of this treasure off, and that's when somebody gets attacked, because there's like these mimics that are, they're rock mimics that look like octopus, and there's a adventurer getting attacked, and like Wiz, Aqua, and everybody's just like, dog, he's a sucker, we do not need him. Like, no, we do not need to help him. Eventually they're gonna help him, and then they get back to getting all the gems they need. Just as everybody is off treasure island, the back of the turtle shell is super clean besides like one spot. So then Cosmo tells Magnamine to be like, yo, use your explosion on that one spot to get the last thing off. And she's like, yo, are you serious? She's like, I don't want this to attack us because it's a big ass turtle. But then she eventually does use her explosion, and it takes off the chunk. And as the turtle's going underground, it hits off a few more gems for everybody there. So chapter 2 starts off with Aqua wanting Cosmo to hurry up and help her with something. Then we find out that she's basically making a garden with Magnamine, and Cosmo's like, you know, this is illegal for us to like make our own garden here, because it's only meant for certain farmers, because you know in the Konosuba world the way the vegetables are. But as they're arguing, that's when they see somebody up at their door just pacing around acting like they want to come and knock on the door. And then you know who it is, it's Yu. And of course Magnamine goes up there and she's like, dog, how you gonna come up to somebody's house and not ring the doorbell or knock? And she was just like, oh, Yu being her, she's just like, oh, I didn't know if I should do this or not. And then we find out basically she came here to she was going to ask for help because she needs somebody's help when it comes to the trial, because she explains that. And that's when Magnamine's finally like, you know what, Yu, I will help you out. And then that's when Yu's like, Magnamine, you will be useless. She's like, after you hit off one explosion, you will be useless. And then that's when Magnamine, gets mad. And then she tells Yu, she's like, yo, I'm helping you no matter what. Let's go right now. We will go off and do this trial. So that's where she goes. And then the rest of the day is going to be Darkness, Aqua, and Cosmo as they try and think about stuff they want to do. And one of the things they come up with is they want to basically increase their experience since Magnamine's not around. So they need, and like she's always the one that's getting all the kills and all that. So they're thinking of stuff to do. And eventually they go to Wiz's shop. And then Aqua goes in there and she basically uses her exorcism on the penguin count again, because she's thinking like, oh, we can just keep killing him and then we can get experience. But then it's like, nah, we can't do that. So after they get done doing that, because like Vander's like, yo, why did y'all show up? And they just had to weasel their way out. They go to the guild and they're trying to figure out like, oh, what can we do? What can we hunt? The one thing that comes up is frogs. And Aqua's like, oh, hell no, I am not doing frogs. Do you remember what happened last time I did frogs? She's like, we always get 8. And then eventually it's going to turn into them doing frogs. And then when they go there, there's no frogs to be seen anywhere. So Cosmo uses his dynamite on the ground and explodes the ground, and a whole bunch of frogs all pop up. And Darkness is like, oh, the reason why all these frogs are here is because the Turtle Island was there. And Treasure Island, I should say, and they was probably scared of all that. And Aqua's losing her mind like, dog, I told you so all these goddamn frogs was gonna pop up. So she's pissed off. And eventually she's gonna get 8. And then like Cosmo just stands there because he's like, yo, I'm gonna get 8 anyway. And they know that frogs don't like Darkness's armor, so Darkness basically has to save them all. And it's just hilarious because Darkness saves both of them, but Aqua gets 8 2 times, and it's hilarious. When they get home, Aqua's all crying and mad, and she's like, Cosmo, I should be pissed off at you. But Cosmo's helping her out, and he even like takes her to the bath, and he's like, yo, you can take a bath first. And yeah, that happens. It's kind of funny. And then finally, eventually Cosmo goes to take a bath, and just know he's chilling in the bath for so long that he falls asleep, and then he wakes up. And by the time he wakes up, somebody comes to the bathroom. And it's kind of like a situation that happened in the anime already, of somebody coming in there back when like Cosmo thought it was a succubus. So just know Darkness shows up, and it is kind of funny because Cosmo screams, because like, in that situation usually it's the girl that screams, but Cosmo screams just because like she comes into the bathroom where she's at. And eventually it's going to lead to her saying that how she wants to thank Cosmo, how she's thanked everybody else, but she has not thanked Cosmo yet, and she needs to wash his back. So Cosmo's like, yo, last time I thought this was a dream, so I didn't really feel it like that. So they get into the thing, and then she does eventually start washing his back, and then that's when Cosmo gets to teasing her about certain things. And one of the things Cosmo gets to talking about is how he's loyal, and that's why he can never get with Darkness. But this is where this man Cosmo being Cosmo is so damn ridiculous. This man is saying like, yo, I'm so loyal, but it's like, if something happened, let's say like you forced me, she's like, in that situation, I mean, I would still like have to do it. And that's when Darkness is like, oh, it's right what everybody says about you. They call you Cosmo scum. Kaz scum. And then the Kaz was just like, yo, I mean, like, yeah, like, you know, I'm me, I do me. And then like Darkness is going to get up, and then Cosmo's like, yo, she's like, I didn't know the Darkness, she's like, I didn't know the Dustine family was like soft like that and they didn't finish their job. And Darkness is like, yo, I will scrub you down everywhere. And then she goes to the front, and nah, this man Cosmo is so stupid, bro. So basically, he says, cause like, you know, they're, you know, in the bath, so stuff is gonna happen. He has a towel over him, and he says, oh, this is my new skill that I bought, and it's because the towel is up in a tent. If you know, you know, it's up in the tent. And he's like, yo, this is my new skill that I bought. And Darkness is like, oh, that's a dumb skill. And it's just hilarious because I'm like, Cosmo, no, your dumbass did not cap and say this is a skill when you know damn well what it was. No, eventually that's going to lead to Darkness saying that, like, how since Cosmo's like so bad, she's going to make it that Magnamine like basically never likes him. And she says she's basically going to put him in some type of situation where Magnamine's never going to want to talk to him and all these other things. And guess who walks in at that exact moment? That's when Magnamine shows up. So chapter 3 starts with Cosmo going to the guild, and he's talking to some girls in the guild, and he's talking about how he's in the newspaper and all that. And the girls are looking like, was your name in the Capital newspaper? And he's like, yeah. She's like, oh, you know, everybody's gonna know your name now, and it's gonna be a target on your head. And Cosmo's looking like, oh shit. And then he goes home, and that's when Darkness and Magnamine are getting into an argument. And that's when Magnamine's talking about how Darkness is basically trying to steal her man, especially because she's dressing all lewd and all these other type of things around, when especially at night, trying to dress all sexy and stuff like that. And she's like, dog, you're always trying to steal my man. So they're getting in an argument. And that's when Aqua out of nowhere, she's like, dang, Cosmo, I didn't know you graduated from neat to basically neat with a harem. She's like, oh, you got a harem now? She's like, oh, when did this happen? And then that's when they get into the usual banter about like neither one of them find each other attractive and stuff like that. And that's when they look outside and they see a ghost is walking around. They're like, what? Why is there a ghost walking around? So then they go to Wiz's shop. And once they get to Wiz's shop, they see Wiz is not there at all. And they're wondering like, where Wiz is at? Because, you know, she's the one that takes care of the ghost and all that. But then out of nowhere, she teleports inside the shop. And then we learn basically that she has a stalker. His name is Duke. And he was basically about to expose himself to her inside like this dark alley, because he basically wants to marry her. That's basically like what we got in a way, because like he said, he's always been thinking about Wiz, and he wants to basically take care of her and have her quit her job and all these other things. So they're all looking like, yo, what exactly is happening here? Who is this random guy and all that? And at that exact moment, Wiz gets a letter in the mail, and then we find out that he basically wants to meet Wiz. So Wiz goes there, and she's dressing up all fine, got a black dress on, looking all nice, if you know. But yeah, she goes there, and then that's when like Cosmo and all of them, they're hiding, and then they read basically the lips that are saying. And eventually this guy, he kind of basically proposes to Wiz, saying that he wants to take care of Wiz, quit her job. He wants her to spend the rest of life with her and all these other things. And he wants to basically take her job and all these other things. So it basically just seems like he wants to basically propose and like marry Wiz. And that's when Wiz teleports out of there, because one, she's embarrassed and she's never dealt with stuff like this. So she's just very embarrassed. And then later that night, we're going to have Cosmo go out in night in the town. And it's kind of funny because Cosmo tells all of them, he's like, yo, I'm going out tonight by myself. And Aqua's like, yo, I want to go out with you. You're drinking? And he's like, no, this is a boys' night out. And then he gives like Aqua some money, because he's like, here goes some allowance to basically shut her up, that she'll go buy some wine and all that. So then Cosmo goes out, and he goes to this bar he usually goes to. He basically sees that Duke is in there. And at first he's not really trying to go over and talk to Duke yet. And that's when like Dust shows up, and Dust goes talk to Duke. And then Dust ends up having to pay money to Duke, and it's kind of funny. But then Cosmo goes over there, starts talking to Duke, learning stuff about him. And then like he even says what his name is, and Duke is looking at him like, oh, you're Cosmo? And then he's like, for a second he wants to fight Cosmo. And then Cosmo's like, oh, I got all these people that are behind me, backing me. And then eventually they get to talking, and then he even says he basically wants to support Wiz. And then when he gets home, basically later that night or whenever he gets home, just know that like he's all talking to them, talking about like how good Duke is and all these other things. And that's when Aqua's looking like, Cosmo, aren't you going to be worried about Wiz and all that? And he's like, no, what are you talking about? She's like, Cosmo, you're the type of person that's not going to want just Magnamine and Darkness in your harem. You're also going to want Wiz, Yu, Eris, Chris, Iris, and then even Komeko. And then Cosmo's like, whoa, slow down. No, you did not just say Komeko. So they get in a little argument and all that, and it's kind of funny. But then just know that leads into Magnamine talking to Cosmo like, Cosmo, maybe I could like teach you something, we can be adults tonight. And Cosmo's like, nah, I'm good. And that's when Aqua goes to talk, and she's like, you know, when Cosmo stays out that late and he doesn't come back home, you know where he's at, because there's a succubus bar. And before she can say that off, Cosmo grabs her ass, and he's like, dog, stop talking. Here goes your goddamn allowance. Just no, no, you're not about to ruin my spot. You don't need to tell them. So chapter 4 is probably my favorite chapter because it has some funny moments in here, but let's get into the chapter. So the chapter basically starts off with Aqua in the garden. It's raining super hard, and that's when the penguin count shows up, and of course Aqua attacks him, of course. But then they go to Wiz's shop because it was urgent, because Wiz and Vanner are in this heated argument about like Duke and all that, because one, Wiz wants to stay with Vanner because like she wants to basically help him out because she made that promise, but then Vanner's like, dog, you can leave, and they get in this big debacle about all these things, and that eventually leads into like Aqua saying like, we need to test out Duke and see if he's actually really good or not, if he's actually like, you know, like a good person. So they come up with the idea of basically having Darkness, Magnemine, and her basically test out Duke and like holler at him and try and pull him. And just know Magnemine's gonna dip. She's like, dog, I am gone. She's like, I am not dealing with this. So she leaves, and they sucker Darkness into doing it. And it's hilarious because Darkness goes there all dressed up, looking all nice, looking like a snack and shit. And as she's there, she basically goes to spit game on Duke. And like while she's there, she's trying to lie about her name. That's when Dusk comes up there and she's like, dog, Darkness, what are you doing? And then she basically has to shoo him away. So as Darkness is talking to him, she's like, yo, can I buy your most expensive wine here? And everybody in that bitch gets to rolling because they know that this cheap little bar doesn't sell wine, so she has to ask for the most expensive drink. And eventually this is kind of funny because she introduces herself as a noble and all that, and the guy eventually turns her down, and it's kind of funny. And just know that Cosmo and Aqua are rolling. They're dying from laughter because she got turned down, and Darkness is so damn mad, and it's hilarious. Just know the next day, Cosmo basically he snuck out, and he comes back in the morning, and that's when he notices Aqua's in the garden, and like he looks at her garden and he's looking like, what is that exactly in your garden? And she realizes it's Legislature girls and one type of monsters. And then Aqua's even saying like, dog, you should not be mad at me when I'm the one that took the full force of Darkness. And that's when Darkness even comes outside, and she looks and sees like that what Aqua was growing, and she's like, yo, we gotta destroy that, and you cannot have this in this garden. And then Cosmo's like, yo, we can actually keep these growing because we can farm EXP on them. And they're all looking at Cosmo disgusted because they're like, dog, why? When Cosmo's actually saying something that would be smart, but they're all just looking at him disgusted. And that's when Magnemine shows up, and we basically find out where she was the whole time. Is she was basically walking around trying to leave, and eventually she goes with Yu because like Yu was still in the guild looking for somebody to help them. And we basically find out what her and Yu been doing. So we find out the first day she went to help Yu, she eventually blew up like one of the things because she couldn't answer the question, and she blew up the site. So then the testing ground. So then the next time they go to sneak to the other testing ground to do the trial again, and of course Magnemine blows it up, and then eventually she gets in trouble. She has to pay a fine, and then Cosmo has to give her some money to pay a fine. It's kind of funny, but this is probably the best part of the whole volume, and that is when like Aqua's like, yo, Magnemine, since you're here, we can test you out on Duke. And then Magnemine's like, Aqua, no, why don't you do it yourself since you're the one with this bright ass idea? So Aqua gets all dressed up and she goes down to the bar, and it's hilarious because when she goes down there and she goes to talk to Duke, just know Duke is looking like he's stunned. As soon as he sees Aqua, he's stunned and just looking at her in awe. He even allows Aqua basically to sit down next to him, and he's even talking about, he's like, and like Aqua's just saying a whole bunch of gibberish, and he even tells her, he's like, yo, I don't understand how the stuff you're saying, but I can tell it's genuine because I'm a good person that can read people and tell like exactly if they're lying and all this other stuff. And it's kind of funny because like Aqua's actually spitting game on him, and that's when Darkness and Magnemine are just like, damn, you're saying that we're less than a woman than Aqua? You're telling us that we can't pull anybody? You're telling us our conversation skills are trash? But yeah, just know eventually he's gonna offer like Aqua drinks, and they're gonna drink a whole bunch of stuff, and they party and all that. Just know Cosmo and all them, they end up going home, and Aqua's just there all night, and she does not come home. So the last chapter of this volume is chapter 5, and just know Aqua comes home in the morning. So like she been out all night with a man. So of course Darkness and Magnemine are joking about Aqua about doing adult stuff, and Aqua's like, you know that I'm an adult, and from time to time I do like doing adult stuff. And Cosmo's like, no, you did not do what I think you did. And she's like, all we did is I would gamble, and then she's like, when I ran out of money, I had to like start, the only thing I had to offer was my body. And they are like, what? And then she's like, maybe body is the wrong thing to say. I had to use my head, And then of course, like the way she was explaining it wrong because like she had to give knowledge, and of course she still owes Duke money, so like she had to get some of her allowance to pay basically Cosma, and get some money from Cosma, basically pay Duke back. So that little part was just kind of funny because like the way she was leading them on, thinking like she actually was doing some adult stuff, but it was just her gambling. And then she even talked about using their body, so I don't know, that part was just kind of funny. And she even gets to talk about how Duke is a really good guy and how she really likes him, was really vibing with him, and how he would be a really good fit for Wiz. So as that's happening, just know Cosma and Darkness are just thinking like, I do not know if I really trust this, because if Aqua has a good opinion of him, I don't know if I really trust this Duke guy. So then eventually they go to Wiz's shop, and when they get there, that's because Aqua basically had like a letter to deliver to Wiz, and like she delivers the letter to Wiz, and it basically the guy's basically saying where to meet them, where he wants to like basically meet Wiz and all that. And while she's in the shop, her and Vanner are having the same discussion. Eventually Vanner is going to look into the future at the one guy, and he's like, go out there and actually respond to his emotions and all this other stuff. So like Vander's basically encouraging her to go out there, and that's when Cosmo's really thinking like, something got to be fishy. And then the whole time as they're walking to go see Duke, that's when Cosmo's just thinking in his head like, something's like off about this, like something really feels off. So when they show up to Duke, Duke is surprised. He's happy that Wiz is there, but he's also surprised why Aqua, Darkness, Cosmagamy, and he's just going like, oh, all these people that I know are all here. And then just know as they're there, Wiz is gonna finally like express herself a little bit, and like even Duke is like, yo, are you ready to battle? And they fight for a little bit, and as they're fighting, just know that Wiz is like trying to express herself, and eventually she says, she's like, yo, I can't really accept your feelings, but we could start off as friends. And that's when Duke is looking like, what is she talking about? That's when Darkness is like, yo, you know when I was in that bar trying to spit game with you, I was just joking and playing. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then even Magnum is like, you know Wiz works at this shop, and she doesn't take care of the spirits here like that anymore. And he's like, what? He's like, what are y'all talking about? He's like, I have no idea what y'all are talking about. He's like, friends, what are y'all talking about? He's like, the job I was talking about was her job as a Demon Lord General. And everybody there's just lost because they really thought he was trying to take care of Wiz. And he's like, yo, I do not like liches at all. I do not like undead. I do not like demons. He's like, I am not attracted to them. He's like, what is wrong with y'all? That's what he's basically saying to them, and they're all just shocked, like, what? Like, what is exactly happening? And as that's happening, he's saying all that. That's when he's basically talking about like when he was trying to like show himself, basically reveal himself to Wiz. He didn't really get to show that to Wiz because like she teleported. And as he's taking off his robes, that's when Aqua notices something. Cosmo and Aqua are the only two looking at him. We see that he has black wings. We find out that he's basically a fallen angel. And Aqua's like, oh, hell no. I thought you was a real one. I thought me and you was tight like that. And she's pissed off. She's ready to go fire on him. And just know that's when Vanner shows up, and he's rolling because like Wiz is all pissed off about basically cuz like taking advantage of basically Wiz's feelings and all that. And he's like, yo, I did not propose to you. She was like, you're the one that had the misunderstanding. And one of the things that happened earlier in the battle, I should say, that was kind of funny is when Cosmo's watching like Wiz and Duke battle, he's talking about how it finally feels like he's in a fantasy world and all that, and he's all super excited. And that's when Magnum gets jealous, gets very, very jealous. And she's like, yo, she's like, you see explosion all the time, and this is real powerful magic, more than that. And Cosmo's like, nah, this is different, dog. And that's when Magnum gets to chanting her explosion. This man basically slams her on the ground and pins her, and he's like, no. He's like, you are not about to ruin this shit. So like they're watching the fight, and as it's happening, Darkness is gonna lose her mind because she's like, oh, Wiz does not want to fight at all. She like, look at her, she does not want to fight. And she's like, as a crusader, I gotta go save him. That's when Cosmo's like, bind. And she's like, yo, Cosmo, you really know how to turn me on. And it's kind of funny, but let's get back to actually what was happening. So that's when Wiz turns up and gets pissed off, and she has that look in her eyes that she had back when she fought the Hans guy. And she goes and basically uses attack and gets the fucking up Duke, like beating his ass. Like she beats his ass so bad that this man basically starts to like try and turn into a lich. And like he basically does that like while like Wiz is arguing with Banner about like not telling the truth and all this other stuff. So as soon as Cuz turns himself into a witch, that's when Aqua attacks him, hits him with her holy magic, and man is basically evaporating. And like Wiz even goes to basically touch him. And like as she's draining his life force away, that's when he's over here talking to Wiz like, oh, we can still be friends. I really want to start with these friends. And she's like, oh, really? And she's being gullible. And that's when Banner is like, Wiz, you know, just like demons, angels don't have a gender, and that's when she hits him with an explosion, and it's hilarious. So I'll just add the epilogue real quick, because epilogue's interesting. Just know they're at Wiz's shop, and Wiz is crying, and like Aqua goes to cheer her up, talking about how she's immortal and how like she'll eventually find somebody. But then that's when Vander's like, you know, on the paper it'll still say you're old as fuck. It is kind of funny, but then eventually he's gonna say like how until his basically labyrinth is made, or his, I guess you say his maze, whatever, his dungeon I should say, he'll basically stick with Wiz, and Wiz is like, really? And he's like, yeah. And like as that's happening, just know they're walking home, and as they're walking home, Aqua's like, yo, Cosma, I found this interesting thing in Darkness's room, like next to basically her diary and all that, and it's this thing that vibrates and all this, and Darkness grabs Aqua and drags her away before she can say like exactly what she found. And that's when she asks Cosma, how many kids would you want us to have together? And Cosma just says a little thing, but then that's when they notice Yu Yu is at the gate, and Yu Yu basically goes to talk to Cosma, and that's when Manami steps up. She's like, oh, what do you have to say to my man? Why do you always gotta ask him? Isn't there anybody else you can ask? And then she loses her mind. She's like, Magnamine. She's like, yo, I have failed the trial 2 times because of yo dumb useless ass, and yells at him. She's like, that's why I need Cosma's help. But yeah, that's funny that the volume ends like that, because Yu Yu is actually pissed off because she really wants to pass this trial. So that's going to lead into volume 14. That's going to focus on all them going to the Crimson Magic Village again to actually try and pass this trial though. But yeah, this is basically what happened in volume 13 of Konosuba. Just know volume 14 I'm going to try and get out soon, but we'll see how soon. I'm going to try actually this month to put out 2, but we'll see though. But yeah, if you're new, why not subscribe, enjoy the video, and like. If you didn't, you can dislike, subscribe, and all that. But yeah, this was a pretty funny volume. I like that like Aqua was over here capping about her being an adult, and like she stayed out late, and then we have little funny moments here. But the next volume should be a little bit more interesting than this one, but this one still was kind of nice because you got to see like some stuff with Wiz and all that. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next video. Bye.